Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Jessica Kendrick on the podcast coming to us all the way from Texas, where I hope the weather's better than it is here. And if it isn't, then I've lost all hope in humanity. But she's a bodybuilder, and she's on here to share her health and fitness journey. And just basically talk all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
I hate to ask this question first off, but I always do. What's the weather like today in Texas?
Well, I saw a meme on the internet that says the weather is kind of like Powerball numbers. That's how it's been in Texas lately. So it's 40 degrees. Yesterday it was like 60, 70
Ugh.
degrees, but today it's 40 degrees and it's super, super windy.
Yeah, well, hey, at least there's that. Like I told her before, it was -10 last night and it's 0 right now. But, we're kind of like that too. We're like the day after tomorrow, it's going to be like 15 degrees, then it's going to be 30, and then it's going to be back down to -5 the day after. Like it's bipolar weather if I've ever heard of it. But I don't want to get too much into that because I don't want to depress, half of our listeners before we even get into the thick of things. So to start off, Jessica, why don't you just give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to, start working out and how that led to you becoming a bodybuilder?
All right. So I know oftentimes fitness influencers or bodybuilders, maybe that you talk to, go into a thing about, oh, they were baseball players, gymnasts, or whatever the case may be. That is not my story at all. I actually did play sports in high school. I played basketball. I did a little bit of track, but early on, I became a young teen mom. So I had to grow up really fast. So when I think of fitness and I think of fitness journey, I think of the physical aspects and I think of the mental aspects as well. So, mental and physical play a huge component in the overall journey. So, I had to grow up really, really quick. Um, I joined the military. So, I'm in the military, 17 years, still active currently. And that is a mental aspect in itself to have to face. So, having mental agility and just having the resilience to push forward and learn something new set the foundation for my fitness journey. Never thought in a million years I would be a bodybuilder. Never thought in a million years that I would be doing what I'm doing now concurrently with being an active duty service member. But my life experiences have set me up to be able to deal with the challenges in the fitness industry.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And second of all, are you going to go the final 8 years and go the full 25?
Well, it's 20.
Oh, it's 20. I
Yeah.
thought it was
It's
25.
20.
Okay, so you
No,
only got
it's
3 years left then, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. So it's 20 for the full retirement. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going.
Well, first of all, I just got to ask. Bodybuilding is a hard enough lifestyle as it is, but being in the military too, we're literally, you could just get called to some place at any moment, any time, and just have to pack up and move your stuff. How do you deal with that with bodybuilding? Because that's one lifestyle where it seems that you really just have to have a lot of things under control, really, to be a bodybuilder, where it's just to just get through the days that, a lot of bodybuilders have. How do you deal with that while being in the military where your situation could change drastically?
Oh, it's very difficult. So there's pros and cons to it, right? So the pros is that the military has set me up with structure. So the structure is coupled with the fitness industry. You have to have structure in order to be a bodybuilder. If you don't have the structure, you're gonna fall flat on your face. But the unknowns is what makes it difficult to pick shows. So I just kind of go into every year knowing what shows that I potentially want to do, and then me and my coach kind of balance things off of there because we don't know what's going to happen. Just to give you an example, last year I had planned on doing a show in August. I did two shows in July, and I planned on doing a show in August. And guess what? Wild card, a mission came up, and all of those plans had to change. And not everybody's going to understand that when they see it on social media. They're going to see it as, oh, this person quit or they didn't do it. It's not for me to explain. It's for me to do my part in service and then still do my fitness as a whole. So it's very difficult.
Oh, I couldn't. We've had, I think the other service members that we've had have either retired and then they got into bodybuilding. And then I think you might be the first like active duty one where I'm like, wow, that's just even more impressive than almost anything that I've ever heard. But before you got into bodybuilding, were there any myths or misconceptions that you had about the sport? Because unfortunately, in the general public, there's so many myths out there about bodybuilding. And then when you add female bodybuilding onto it, it's like times 10. So did you have any reservations about the sport before you got into it?
So for me, when I got into it, I knew absolutely nothing about the sport. I'm still learning. I always tell people to always be a student, always constantly learn and never stop learning. That's what'll make you great. But I know absolutely nothing about the sport. So I was going into it blind. I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what the pinnacle of the sport was. I was just challenged to, hey, you look like you have the structure to do XYZ. And I'm like, oh, this seems challenging. Let me try it. I tried it and did well and kept going and earned my pro card in a year and then kind of went from there.
Hey, that is impressive. But I mean, on top of all this, like I told you before, I mean, the number one myth and stereotype that I love to bust is that, women still have that fear, a lot of them, that if they walk into the gym and they touch one weight, they're going to put on 50 pounds. Did you ever have that fear? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time today. How do you like to respond to that?
So personally, I didn't have that fear because I have a degree in health sciences, so I understand how the body functions. I understand macronutrients. So I understood the baseline of everything and the the body as a whole. That wasn't something that I feared, but that's something that I constantly have to remind people who, hey, either work out with me or follow me that that's just not how it works. Is you just don't grow that way. And if you did, then there would be a lot of big people out here, huge people, muscular.
I'm not gonna lie, this podcast was literally just my search for the big white buffalo that's like the one person that it happens to, so then I can be like, I found them, I'm done with this podcast. It's like finding the golden ticket in Willy Wonka, I can finally, I finally found the person. So the search continues, everyone. We didn't get them this time, but hey, maybe next time, who knows? But I mean, I love to also talk genetics on this podcast because everyone's on social media. I hear this all the time. Oh my God, I want her abs. I want his arms. I want their back. And I just kind of want to strangle them and just be like, you do not understand that you can work out just like this person. You can eat just like them. You're not going to look like them. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. But on top of that, whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion. I mean, my back was the one thing that just shot up for me because I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are the one thing that just drag behind where I mean I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't even gain any muscle. I mean, it's a never ending struggle for me. But what was one body part that really took off for you, and then one body part that just dragged behind when you first got started?
So my upper body just completely takes off. So anything upper body develops really quickly for me. I still developing my back, but like I always had really broad shoulders, so it didn't take much for me to get shoulders, which cap shoulders are a big thing in the figure category. But my
We can see
legs,
them through the 2 layers of clothing that she's wearing, everyone. So that means that that means that they're there. I mean, like that. There's no way of hiding them at this point. Yeah.
I'm trying. But my legs and my glutes will probably be the hardest for me to come down. I'm originally from Kentucky, so I'm kind of a Southern girl, and so mom has blessed me with a backside that is hard to get rid of, no matter how much I work it. But I explain to females as well. They like to, a lot of people. I want to just say females. They like to try to target fat. You can't target fat. Your body's going to burn it where it wants to burn it. So you can do as much as you want to that particular body area, and your body's going to burn it where it wants to burn it. And I've had to learn that the hard way.
Well, and I mean, we're gonna talk about nutrition too because like you said, being from the South, I luckily I was not from the South. Otherwise, I'd probably be about 350 pounds right now because I can't imagine having that all the food that they got down there. So luckily, I was just from all the food here is just frozen solid right now. So it's not you're not going to get too big off it. But what kind of adjustment was that like? Because like you said, growing up, I mean, I've heard so many stories of guests that have on from the South of just all the lavish feasts that they have, and it seems to be quite common there. What was that like, sort of adjusting to the nutrition now, where it's so much more restrictive? And that's really, like I told you, my own journey. That's the only reason why I never really stepped on stage because I just couldn't do it. But what was that adjustment like for you, nutrition wise?
Um, so I've been very, very fortunate to be with a great team. Pro Physique with my coach Damien Segovia. I'm not really restricted, but I won't say that I jump off the cliff. Um, it's been really easy when you have a focal point of where your goals are and where you're trying to be. It's easy to kind of cut off things that don't align with those goals. So for me, going back to the military, the structure, what is the end state, what is the goal, it was easy for me to kind of say, hey, no to these things, but it's still in my face every day. Every day. The greens, the red beans and rice, all of that. So just picking my vices at this point.
Out of your life history and all your journey, you would be the least likely person that I probably ever think would be a bodybuilder. With the military, growing up in the South, doing all this stuff. I mean, the fact that you're able to do this is just so impressive to me. But I mean, like the working out aspect, just getting all those workouts in, especially being in the military where you don't really know. I mean, like there's a lot of structure, but some days are different than others. Like you don't know where you're going to be at any given moment in time. How do you fit those workouts in? Because a lot of it, I mean, a lot of type A personalities I've talked to where it's like, I got to work out at 10 a.m. exactly. And, if anything happens, it ruins everything. And I'm like that myself as well. I'm not going to lie. But being in the military, you can't really have that sort of mindset. So, how do you deal with the fact that, I mean, you always have to be adjusting things, even in a lifestyle that doesn't really work that well with adjusting a lot?
Hmm. So luckily in the military, we have to do physical training every morning. So you hear people all the time like, "Oh, I have to make myself get up at 4:30." Well, 4:30 is my alarm clock. We get up that time anyway every day to do physical training 5 days, a week when we're at work. So sometimes I do what I need to do, what's a part of my plan during that time frame. Kind of squeeze in some of those tidbits, and then I'll go to work out at night. Sometimes I'll work out during lunch. It all depends. But however I have to fit the goal in, that's how I structure it within the day. But bodybuilding and military fitness is two completely, totally different things.
You're not going to get that bodybuilder body by doing push-ups and pull-ups
No,
and obstacle running and a lot of cardio and stuff.
no,
Yeah, yeah. It's
exactly.
so how do you deal with that though? Because like in the military, you do a lot of cardio where it's like cardio is great. I mean, I hate cardio more than life itself, to be completely honest. But it's the
Guilty.
best thing for really getting in that shape. And I'm glad that you would appreciate that as well. But in the military, like you do a lot of cardio, and sometimes cardio can be too much, especially if you're trying to maintain a solid mass. Do you ever struggle with that?
Absolutely. So that's one thing that I have discussions with my coach about, trying to find that balance, right? This is where he sees me going or where my physique needs to be. This is where I have to be career wise, because I still have to maintain my career. I still have to meet the goals of the military and the physical demands that they say that I have to meet. So I have to find that balance, and having a great coach that's able to program that for me has made all of the difference. So I might not be able to run as much as the Army would like me to, but I still do run and meet the goals.
Like, honestly, at this point, are you just counting the days on your calendar? Or like, oh my god, 3 more years and I can just work out really, and I won't have to worry about any of this?
Not at all. Not at all. With the military, I'm trying to see how far I can
Yeah.
go. Just like bodybuilding,
Yeah.
I like the challenge. I'm there.
So, like, when it comes to time management, I mean, do you have any tips and tricks for just the general public? Because obviously, not everyone's in the military, not everyone's bodybuilding, so we don't have probably your type of schedule, which is a demanding schedule. But any tips and tricks for people that are just looking to get more out of the day? Because, like, I hear this all the time. Oh, I don't have the time to work out, and it's like, if I were to now again, everyone, do not do this because you will be a stalker and you will be arrested. But if you were to follow someone for the entire day and just write down what they did, there's plenty of time in anyone's day almost that they could get a workout in. But what advice do you have for people just to find that time really in them and just start really?
First, if they're like social media crazy people, they need to go and look how much time they spend on social media, and then they carve out that time and then they start working out. Most people spend more time on social media than focusing on their own goals. How I figure how to do it, I write down everything. I have a calendar, I have a phone calendar, I have a handwritten calendar on this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and that's how I kind of plan and structure my day. So I have to pre-plan. I can't just do a free for all on each of my days, or I'll fail. So having that structure, you have to have that structure.
People have asked me what separates me from my guests. I'm a guy where I literally just wake up every morning and say, "Let's see what happens today." I obviously have a 40-hour a week job. I have a regular job too on top of this and working out, but like literally I know my set schedule and literally it's like, "Oh, I could work out at 9, I could work out at 10. I work 11 to 7." So it's I can do it really whenever. So yeah. Believe me, there are times that I want a more strict lifestyle, and then there are times that I just enjoy what I have. So, everyone we can, but having a lifestyle like Jessica, I mean, that is to me that is just absolutely like one of the most impressive things ever. But on top of just this bodybuilding lifestyle, this is so much more of a mental journey than it is a physical journey, and people
Mhm.
do not understand that. They just see the physical changes and they say like, "Oh my god, Jessica, you look amazing," but they don't understand that mental transformation that happens as well, and that's 100 times more important. I don't care what anyone says. What has this been journey been like for you mentally? Just because, I mean, that is something that isn't talked about, but it's so important.
So for me, just to be transparent, like I said, this was one of my goals for 2022 was to open up more to my followers and just kind of put myself out there. I have two children. I have two boys. They're both older, and both of them have a disability, right? So I have one with a physical disability and one has a cognitive disability. And so for me mentally, when I try to push through those barriers or the things that are going to stop me, I think about them, right? I think about the example that I set for them. I look at them as my mirror and just try to be the example that I want them to see. Hey, this is tough, but you can do it. Hey, this is difficult, but it's possible. So when it comes to mental roadblocks, I always revert back to my children and think, my children are watching me. They have it 10 times more difficult than I ever will ever have it in life. How can I be that example for them? And that's what I utilize as a mental gateway to kind of push through the difficult times.
I've talked to a lot of nurses and doctors on this podcast, and they do the same thing where it's like they realize that, like, hey, I've been dealt a lucky hand in life where, I don't have to worry about some of the stuff that my patients or in your case, your sons have to deal with. And that's what's their opinion though of having a mom that's a bodybuilder? What's their reaction? Just like, damn, my mom's jacked, really.
Pretty much, yeah. No, no. My youngest, the youngest, who's the amputee, he's just absolutely fascinated by it, and it's amazing just to see how his face glows when I have a show coming up. He makes fun of me when I'm making my food and things like that, but we all poke fun at each other. But his face just lights up, and he's just amazed when he sees me on stage because he knows the work that I had to put in and all of these things. And then my oldest, he's actually an athlete. He's a track athlete. So when he sees me adopting a lifestyle without me even saying this is what you need to do or this is the healthy way, he automatically mimics it. So not mimicking it to the point where he's eating chicken, broccoli, things of that nature, but he's saying like, "Oh man, I can get to here if I do these things based off the example of my mother." So it's just amazing. Your kids are always watching. People are always watching. Remember
Those track
that.
athletes, I'll tell you. I mean, that's just. I have a friend that runs marathons, and I just wanted to go to the end of the marathon, just hold up a sign that's saying like, "You didn't have to do this" or something like that. Basically, where it's hey, more power to him though, because you'll never catch me on the. I've always told people the only time you're ever gonna see me run, you gotta be chasing me with a knife or something like that, and then you'll see me run. But other than that, I power walk. That's about the best you'll get out of me. But what was your friend's reaction like when you announced them like, "Hey, I want to give a bodybuilding a try," because it's not really the normal thing that a lot of people would say to their friends.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate to have very, very supportive friends. I have a very close circle of people who I consider my friends. So if I said right now I want to go climb Mount Everest, they're gonna be like, "Okay, let's get the backpacks." They're those kind of friends. They're not gonna do it with me. They're gonna stay at the bottom and they're gonna wait for me to come back
I was gonna
down.
say that's
But
real. That's real ride or die if they're going with you, just right up to Mount Everest and be like,
they're
"Okay,
not
let's
going.
go."
They're gonna be like, "I'll bring the juice, the water, and stuff. I'll meet you at the bottom." So I have really supportive friends and family that help me through this process. So I've just been very fortunate in that aspect because not everybody has that.
Well, and also just when it comes to just like let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. If you were to walk as much as you try to cover up right now, like I said, it's still there no matter what you do. And unfortunately, now you do have a little bit of excuse in the winter where I mean, yeah, you can kind of, but like if you walk out in public, I sort of like to make the observation of like you're almost like a mini celebrity where it's like you are going to get people's attention just because it's not something that they see that's of the normal where they're just like, "Oh, wow, that's interesting." What has that been like for you? Because I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I was bigger in my college days and stuff like that, but like I was a guy too and stuff like that. So, it wasn't that big of a deal. But like, what has that been like for you, especially as your career in bodybuilding has got on? Have you sort of gotten more used to it, or is it one of those things where you're just like, okay, it's just something that happens where I just got to deal with it?
I've started to block it out. I started to block it out. Honestly, this hat, like most of my posts or anything you see, you always see me with a hat on because that's my way of kind of blocking out my left and right. So not focusing on what the person to the left or to the right or whatever is doing, saying, or whatever the case may be. And that's just my mental block for that. But people definitely do talk. Like I go to gym with my husband. He's like, "Oh, your wife is jacked." Yeah, I'm jacked. Yeah, I'll bench press you. No, come over here.
No, you just gotta do if they ask you if you work out, just be like, "No, I was just born like this. Never touched a weight in my life." Yeah,
Ever? What's the
yeah.
weight?
Yeah, what's a weight? Yeah, I mean, I used to use that response back in the day, and it was always a good laugh, but I mean, the hardest thing for so many of these competitors is the posing, and it was the one thing that I never would have
Oh,
guessed in a million years. See, we get that
oh.
reaction almost every single time where it's harder than your nutrition, it's harder than your working out. What has your experience with posing been like?
Oh my goodness. I was hoping that you didn't ask me anything about no. So I have been very, very fortunate again. I know I keep saying I'm very fortunate, but my opposing coach, Sid Gillen, with Cake Factory, Lord, Cake Factory Fitness does my posing. This 5-time Miss
Yeah,
Olympia.
she's the best figure competitor that's ever lived,
She
and
is.
probably ever will be. Yeah,
I am,
yeah.
I am like baby deer on ice when it comes to posing or trying to walk. Just the whole military in me. I'm just very rigid. I don't have a ballet background or a dance, jazz, finger background, none of that stuff. So it is very difficult. And as much as I think that I'm being sexy or flowy or whatever on stage, when I look back at my video, I'm just as militant as I was when I first started. But I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress.
That's the thing about this sport is that you're never going to be perfect at anything. So it's always just a work in
Ever.
progress, which I mean, that's one of the reasons too why I didn't want to ever compete because I was like, okay, I'm one of those people where if I ever won just one show, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I can retire a champion, but it's not you can't really have that mindset. But out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite one and what is your least favorite one?
So my favorite one is my front pose because I can hit my front pose, in my sleep just like that. My least favorite, I got two least favorites. Sorry, I know you said
Yeah,
one.
oh, that's fine. Yeah.
The side pose and the back pose. The side pose, no matter how much I look at it, no matter how much I turn, it's just so awkward for me, and it's hard for me to really stretch out my back the way that I need to show off what I need to show off. And then the back pose is very difficult for me as well because you're not only thinking about opening up your back, you're like flexing your legs, you got to get your hamstrings in, don't squeeze your glutes. It's like so much stuff to think about. But all people see is, oh, they're on stage, they turn around and they no, 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 no. I gotta do all this all of these motions that are hard for me to process at once sometimes.
That was the biggest thing for me that a lot of people just didn't understand that I'd always try to explain to people is like they are flexing everything. They are not just flexing their back or flexing their arms or flexing their legs. It is everything at once. Like most people when they look at like a front double bi, they're like, "Oh, they're just flexing their arms." No, they're flexing their legs. They're flexing. I mean, it all comes, and that's for so many people. It's just like the biggest shock. But hey, at least with your back pose, you don't have to have that smile because I mean, for
Oh
most
yeah.
people, their jaw muscle is the most sore thing after these shows, just from all that smiling. I mean, it's like the human body's not designed to be in that pose for that long of a period of time. The human body is also not meant to be smiling for that long a period of time, too. So, goes into that. But what is that feeling like for you when you get to walk up on that stage finally after going through preps? Which I mean, let's be honest, preps are a living hell. And anyone that says anything different, I have a psych ward that I can sign you up then for them because I mean that's a serious like thing that we need to get taken care of. But what is that moment like for you when you finally get to step on that stage and just be like, hey, all that hard work that I put into it, it pays off now.
Oh, I have really, really bad anxiety. So just as soon as I step on, as soon as I hear the music, as soon as I get downstairs to the venue, it's automatic heart racing, overthinking, trying to calm myself down. And I just try to go on stage and because I don't have my magic hat with me, so I can't put my hat on and block everybody out. Go out there and do what we've practiced. And then I find myself going back and analyzing everything after I get off the stage. But it's just really difficult because you're being judged, right? Not being judged by the panel, and then you have an audience of people that are out there critiquing you and scrutinizing your every move, and you're trying to go out there and do your best. So it's high anxiety.
Does time seem to speed up or slow down, or is it sort of a mixture when you're on stage?
I'm always told by my posing coach, you need to slow down. So in my head, I'm moving really slow, but apparently I move really fast. So on stage, I feel everything is very slow. But when you go back and look at it, you're just like, wham, bam, get out of here, ma'am. Let me go.
Oh, it's amazing what the mind can do, especially when it comes to, like, slowing time down or making it seem really fast. But yeah, there've been times where I've worked like a 12-hour shift and it feels like I've been there for like 15 minutes, and then you're like, "Oh wow, it's already over now." Or yeah, that's probably the only thing that I can compare it to. But what was that moment like for you when they announced your name and you realized, "Oh my god, I'm a pro now"? Because for so many people, that's the highlight of their entire career, just because that's the affirmation that, like, "Hey, I'm being recognized now, and I can finally compete with the big boys and girls, really, and I become, sort of the little fish in the big pond." But that's the affirmation that, like, all this hard work that I put in has finally paid off. What was that moment like when they announced your name?
Surreal. It is, and honestly, and I'm not trying to just be modest. It's still surreal to this day. I had set a goal for myself. I started in 2019 to get my pro card by 2020, December 2020, and then I wound up getting it in November of 2019 that year. So to hear my name and know that I was a part of not only the NPC Nationals, which is the hardest amateur show, of the year, and then in the largest class of female competitors who all went out there and prepped their hardest and posed their hardest, and to be at the top was is surreal. I had
Well,
to go upstairs and pinch myself.
oh yeah. Well, did you find any skin there, or were you one of those people that when were you just able to just find something at least? Because I've seen some of these competitors, and I was like, God, if they pinch themselves, I don't know what's going to happen to their body. But hey, you picked the right time, because if you would went to that December 2020 thing, God, that hindsight would have been bad with COVID. So, what was your journey like through COVID, really? Because I mean, being in the military and being a bodybuilder, I mean, those are two lifestyles where you can't really take, and especially in the military, you probably weren't given some time off like the rest of the world, really, to just shelter in place. So, what was that whole journey like with you, just still trying to stay in shape and going through, just that experience that us as a whole people really went through?
So at that time, I was stationed in Hawaii. So I was in Hawaii at the time, and when COVID hit, it hit in March of 2020. Um, Everything shut down, and with the military, we couldn't travel. So unlike competitors who were on, they say the mainland, the main U.S. They were able to drive maybe to venues and everything. In Hawaii, we were on complete lockdown. So we couldn't go anywhere in the military. We couldn't go to the other islands. We had to stay on the island. We couldn't take leave. So it was mentally challenging to know, hey, I've earned this. Now I want to do a pro show. And now I'm at a complete pause. But it was beneficial because it gave me a whole year before my pro debut, which was actually needed. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess one of the positives about being in the military too is that, like, you're gonna still be able to get your protein and all that stuff in. Like, they're not gonna say like, "Okay, everyone, we're having a chicken shortage," kind of like they had around here where I live close to farm country, where it's like you're gonna have that. But I mean, yeah, I can see the benefits of that, of just, yeah, having that full year. But what was that like? Just finally coming back and everything. Because I mean, being a year on lockdown, especially lockdown, like, I got to go out and do stuff. Like, I could still drive to stores and do all that. What was that like, just being completely shut down?
I try not to relive it. I try not to
You she
relive
can
it. It
write a
takes
she
me
can
to a
write a book
dark
about it
place.
later on in life. Yeah.
It just it's just not fun, right? Because everybody else in the world, like you said, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't do anything. You couple the military on top of it, you're like really restricted. Like you can't see your family, you can't go on leave. You got to have permission to do X, Y, Z, things of those nature. Because there was policies, right, put in place that were very public. So it's just very difficult time. So you had to either I had to figure it out or I had to give up. And I've never been a person to quit. So guess what? I got resistance bands. I had chicken by the pound. I did whatever I had to do, stay on top of my goals. And of course, my coach kept me focused.
I mean, at least that's the perfect situation to just get jacked as hell. Really, is just be like, hey, I've got nothing else to do. So if that would have been me, that probably would have been my response too. I was like, I'm just gonna hit the weights, because that's like, what else are you gonna do? So at least, like you said, that was the perfect time then to really get ready for a show. But what was this last prep season like for you? Because I mean, coming back to the mainland, doing all that stuff. What
Mhm.
was that like, sort of readjusting back to having a somewhat normaler-ish schedule where, like, you can go to gyms and stuff? Was this prep a I hope this prep was a lot easier than the prep the year before.
Well, it prep is never easy. Remember you said that. If a
Oh,
person says
oh, oh,
prep is easy, they're
it's never easy.
crazy.
Hey, it can never be easy, but it can be easier. Just like, yeah.
It could be easier.
Just like, hey,
Um,
hey, you can get shot in the toe or can get shot in the heart. One of them's gonna, it's still gonna hurt, but one of them's gonna be a little bit less painful.
True, true, true. You got me. Um, but this prep was it was difficult still because now I came back to the mainland in October of 2020, and so now stationed here in Texas, and so now I'm with a new unit. Have to learn a new job, learn the people, and then still prepare for a show. So you got to learn the people, and then you got to prepare for a show. But this time, I said COVID was not going to get me. When I moved, I got me gym equipment, and I said if they shut down the gyms again, at least I'm going to have free weights, and I'm going to have me a bench, and I'll still be able to carry on with the prep regardless of what happened. So I kind of set myself up in that aspect to not be put in that situation again.
If anything, you can just use your two sons to his weights too. I mean, if
Oh yeah.
push really did come to shove, I mean, that's the benefits of children. Everyone, yep, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, just yeah, coming back and I mean, it's just again, your journey is just so surreal, really, to me. But I mean, I love to talk about sleep because it's the one thing, it's the most important thing in this lifestyle, and I don't care what anyone says. If you tell me that sleep is not important, I always tell you pull an all nighter and then go and try to work out and tell me how that works. Now, being in the military, you've probably done your full share of that, but
Oh yeah.
I get about halfway through and then I'm just like, screw this. I'm going to go back and try to get some sleep. But what is your relationship with sleep like? Because unfortunately, as you do get closer into your prep, sleep becomes ever more important. But there's a phenomenon that I try to explain to people, but they don't get it. Where like you can be so tired that you can't sleep, and that seems kind of like an oxymoron. How do you deal with that, especially as you get closer in preps?
Well, my sleep year round is scheduled, so I tend to be in bed by 9 o'clock, no later than sometimes on the weekend. Okay, I stay up, a little later, but 9 o'clock is usually when I'm in the bed because I know I have to get this much sleep to be up at X amount of time. But funny story, when I was in the prep, my last prep that I was in, my show was in July, right before I was supposed to fly out. That put me on 24-hour duty, which we have this great thing that we have to do. And when it's 24-hour duty, it's not 24-hour and go to sleep. So to be in a peak week and then to have to pull a 24-hour straight and then get on a flight, it definitely ruined a lot of stuff for me. But I mean, I was able to bounce back from it, the resilience from it.
How do you deal with being in the military and then also having to deal with prep brain as you get closer to a show? Because it's like they want their people alert and as focused as can be. And when you're in that last few weeks of prep, you are not that. And I don't care what anyone says.
So I schedule when I know I'm going to do a show. I put in for leave ahead of time, and usually peak week. I'm off peak week, and then the week of the show because I know at that point I'm not going to be thinking straight. I'm not going to be focused. I probably won't be very beneficial, at that moment. But I tend to schedule my leave time around the show so that way I don't have to deal with that brain fog because it is a real thing. It's definitely a real thing.
I mean, my biggest fear in life is that someone up in those North Dakota, missile silos that they have is going through prep brain right now, and I'm like, I do not want that person at the keys when the moment comes to be like, oh, I'm just tired and hangry. So hey, at least you schedule your leave. So that hey, you're proactive when it comes to that. But I mean, this is it's an extreme lifestyle. I mean, let's be completely honest. I mean, the diet that you go through, the training that you go through, and this has been a year where there have been some deaths. They're coming off. I mean, obviously not this new year because we're only 2 days into it, but coming off, this last year where there were so many deaths, and a lot of people that aren't really familiar with the sport kind of got familiar with just some of the craziness that goes on, behind the scenes in the sport and how dedicated people have to be. What was that like for you? Just sort of seeing that, and just realizing that like, hey, I mean, obviously you knew about everything, about how restrictive and how dedication this is, but what was that like for you just to see that as a competitor yourself, just to see sort of some of the changes that were going on in this industry over last year?
Um, well, it definitely was scary just to see the things that are going on, but I also have to remind myself, um, and nothing against anybody who has passed away or however they passed away. Things happen in life, and sometimes things are put in our face, and we see it more often. So we think that is the reality of what's going on when actually it happens more often, right? So it happened. Things like this happen all the time, but it might not be publicized as much. But when it's constantly publicized, then the next person, then the next person, then the next person, then people see it as a threat. So I tried to just focus on what I needed to do and what I'm doing and the direction my coach was taking me and the guidance from my coach and steer away from everything else that's going on.
No, that's hey, I honestly try to do that myself. And what is one thing that you wish that general public would understand more about the sport of bodybuilding?
One thing that I wish that they would understand more about, I don't know. That's a good question.
Or like
I
appreciate or anything like that, because for me, I mean, honestly, I talk to someone and they're like, "Oh, you have bodybuilders on?" I'm like, "Yeah," and then they're just like, "Oh, those are the people that just work out a lot," and then they go on stage and pose, and you're like, "You got about 1% of the
uh
lifestyle down." There's just so much
yeah,
unknown, really. Yeah.
yeah. Um I would want people to know that it is hard work and the dedication and the sacrifice that comes with the sport. Like you said, a lot of people just see people get on stage and they flex and they get to sue. They don't see the monetary sacrifice that comes with it, the physical sacrifice, the family time, the missed birthdays, things of that nature that come with it. So to try to be more empathetic to what people are doing and not be so quick to be judgmental because it's very difficult.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's just so much more in this lifestyle than every. I mean, it's just so much more than what the general public thinks. So that's why I like to have bodybuilders on and share their story, because it does show a lot of things. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, what, Jessica, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Honestly, I wouldn't change anything at this point. And I know that's
Not even the prize money.
right. I mean, I'm so new in it. For me to solicit a change, I don't feel that I'm in a position to even offer any type of change because I'm still learning myself about all of the different aspects of the sport. So maybe ask me that question 3 years from now, and then maybe I'll be able to answer it better. But to solicit some type of change for the sport, I'm still learning the sport myself to try to change something that's been in existence for longer than I've been born.
Well, yeah, and when for me too, it's like mine would be financially would be don't make them tan, because when you're as white as I am, like this is pure Norwegian white right here. Where like I would need 10 layers, I would need at least just the amount of money that would cause in and of itself. If I were to ever not have a tan on and go on stage, it would be like Indiana Jones at the end when they open the ark and everyone's face melts. It just the sun reflects just right off it. It's like Twilight, except it's not like I don't look like Edward. Like let's be honest, but like that for me too is like, yeah, we got to figure something out, because yeah, when you it's just, and that's another one of the things that people don't get, the tan. And there's just so much about this sport that like it's just the little things that add up that most people just do not get. But when we do have you on a year from now, because I'd love to have you on a year from now because you are a great guest, where would you like to be at in bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
What things? So of course, like probably all competitors that probably came on your show, I want to make it to the Olympia. I want to make it to the stage of just the biggest show in bodybuilding. That is my ultimate goal. To have a successful military career and make it to the stage of the Olympia. That is my overall goal, and I'm talking like next 2 years. That's
Hey,
where my brain is.
oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, you gotta have like a year. Yeah, I mean, most people, yeah, they do that thing where they're like, I'm gonna do it next year, and it's like, well, just give yourself some time off, or at least. But hey, I mean, that's great that you have that. And if there were to be like a genie that were to pop up and say, what, I'll grow one body part for you, over this next year, what's the one body part that you wish that you improve on the most this next year?
Give me the glutes, please. Give me the glutes.
I'll
No,
I'll
my
be on
my
that waiting list as well. Yeah, I won't.
no, my glutes and hammies, like just the posterior chain. Just if they could just be like, hey, here you go, make this happen and just give it to me, I would be ecstatic. But that would be the one part that I want to see like come up if it was in part of a gene pool or something.
Oh yeah, well, and I mean, like, is it hard for you to like sort of sometimes lay off the training on especially the upper body? Because like, yeah, you said you have like a great upper body, you sort of have to focus more on the legs. Because the gym bro in me would be like, if I ever have to skip an upper body day or like not do it as much, I would go crazy.
So everything's programmed, right? So I have my upper days and I have my lower days. But every person, regardless if they want to admit it or not, has that area that they like the most. So they're going to train it harder. I absolutely hate lower body and it shows. So I just have to mentally get past that block that I absolutely hate it and start training harder and I'll probably see better results, overall.
Well, and I mean, like I'm just looking at I was just looking at some of your posts that you made right now when you were talking. Like, have you thought about maybe moving up to like physique or something like that? Because like
Never,
never, yeah, never.
never, no,
But you don't
no,
have to wear those high
never.
heels.
No, I'm good. Did you not hear me at the beginning when I said I move like Bambi on ice?
Yeah, not having those heels will make you move a little bit less like Bambi. Then you don't have to worry about it.
No,
No, but yeah,
no.
that's because it's like yeah, like you do have that upper body where it's like if you wanted to, you could. But hey, more power to you for staying in figure because yeah, that to me, yeah, that's. I mean, the only problem with figure and that posing really is that like you do like you do core turns and stuff like that. I mean, it shows off a lot, but it's like I don't know. But I love that they have those divisions, and I mean, but what is that like knowing though that it's like you can try as hard as you will, but even if you go to that Olympia with Sid Gillen, it's like you're still gonna get second place.
Say it again. What did
What's
you
that
say?
like? It was a joke that I tried to make. What's that like? Like knowing that like no matter what I do, Sid Gillen is still gonna beat me.
She was wonderful. I mean, you have to again, you have to focus on your race, right? You can't focus on who else is going to show up, what everybody else is doing. You have to just focus on your race. You know she's going to be there. She's made it very clear that
Yeah.
she's not going anywhere anytime soon. But that ain't your focal point. And that's not why you're prepping. You're prepping to be the best version of yourself every day.
Which is
So
why, again, I was like, anyone that competes in the bodybuilding division, it's like, why even show up? Andrea Shaw is going to be there, and it's just like, what's the point? What's the point, really? I mean, it's like you're just wasting money on a ticket. No, but that's again, everyone. That's why I'm not a stand-up comedian. My humor doesn't fly that well. But no, again and again, Jessica, it's just been so great to have you on. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
absolutely. So I definitely want to give a shout out to my team, Pro Physiques, and my coach, Damian Segovia. He's been phenomenal in this journey, keeping me on track. My posing coach, Sydney Gillen. Also, my close friends, family that ride with me along with this journey. And then Swag Fit Fitness with IFBB Pro Derek Stevenson. And then I also want to give a huge shout out to, if you see my shirt, Everyday Better. So Eric Yamashita is the founder of this company. It's not sponsored, so I'm doing this on my
Oh,
own.
no
I just
worries.
love
Yeah,
him.
absolutely.
I just love him. And his message just resonates with me so much. And it's just a reminder that you can be the best version of yourself every day. Every day is a new opportunity to be the best version of yourself. And I love him and I support him for providing this affirmation for everybody to kind of clinch on fitness, health, or whatever the reason may be. So I definitely want to make sure that I acknowledge Eric Yamashita.
Absolutely. I mean, the question I love to ask, as we wrap things up is, like we were talking about, just getting started with a health and fitness journey. I mean, you probably get asked this all the time, like, oh, I want to get in shape, but I just don't know how. What's the best piece of advice for people just to get started, just to take that first step?
Find you a good coach.
Yep.
Your coach is going to make or I don't want to say make or break you because you have to do the work, but find a coach that has your best interest in mind and has your goals at the focal point of what they're doing and trying to get you there. There's a lot of people out there that do things for financial gain. So that's why I said it's important to find you a coach that has your best interest to get you to where you're trying to be, not where their their pockets, where they want their pockets to be.
And everyone, I make $200 a month on YouTube doing this, so obviously I'm not in this for the money, everyone. So yeah, you have to have a little bit of passion in it as well. But again, Jessica, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story. It was great to have you on. I mean, I wish you
Thank
nothing
you
but
for
the
having me.
best. And again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.